Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. Okay, so we are picking up with Captain America by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I think this is probably one of the best comics that nobody's reading, and it's kind of disappointing because, okay, so here's my stance. Secret Empire was the best Captain America story ever told, and I don't care what anybody says. There's a lot of naysayers out there, don't care. I loved I loved Secret Empire. It was amazingly written. It was amazingly drawn. I adore that story. I will say this: 25 years of reading comics, and with the exception of Spider-Man Clone Saga, I've never seen people get so up in arms about a single story arc before. But nonetheless, one of the big things that Ta-Nehisi Coates does is he actually draws on Secret Empire pretty heavily here, in the sense that the way things kind of pop off in the beginning is you basically have these Hydra agents, really what's left of Hydra under Secret Empire. But what's basically going on here is that after Secret Empire ended and Hydra was toppled, there's still remnants across the world. There's still remnants of different places all over the place, those who just kind of refuse to let the idea go that hey, look, Hydra is still here. And so with that happening, what ends up happening here is we basically meet with a girl named Alexa. Now, she will be explained once we get later on into the story, so I'm not going to spoil anything here, but it's kind of a cool thing because where this Hydra cell is basically making its escape, they're suddenly met by the arrival of a woman in black who essentially destroys them all. And when Alexa, kind of gets out and the two of them start talking, we end up realizing that the two of them are working together, but this woman in black is Selene. Now, this was actually really cool, and it really, really caught me by surprise because Selene is largely an X-Men villain. So in Marvel Comics, those of you guys who are new or those of you guys who are not familiar with Selene, in Marvel Comics, you've got different types of mutants, right? And we've talked about this in previous videos, but you've got different types of mutants. You've got proto mutants, and then you've got traditional mutants like the X-Men, Cyclops, Wolverine, Professor X, Magneto, and then you have what are called externals. And externals are mutants who are legitimately immortal. What does this mean? Well, it means that they can be killed through physical means, right? You can chop their heads off or something along those lines. But if they're never injured, if they're never attacked, if they're never beheaded or something like that, then they'll live forever because they're immune to aging, they're immune to all diseases, all those different things that exist. The difference between Selene and a lot of the other externals who are out there, externals like Gideon or somebody like that, is Selene has to basically siphon off life energy in order to keep herself youthful. So she's an external, but with kind of a caveat. So she's sort of unique among the various externals who exist out there. But in this instance, she's essentially working directly alongside Alexa. Now, we didn't initially know why, and in fact, again, we'll sort of figure this out, but what it does is it shifts over to Captain America. And what Captain America is basically dealing with here is kind of this Hydra protest that was going on, and then was met by the arrival of what were essentially an army of nukes. Now, Nuke is a guy by the name of Frank Simpson. Now, these are all essentially clones of him, it seems, but Nuke was a character who was part of Weapons Plus, right? That was whole Grant Morrison's new X-Men, that huge expansion on the Weapon X project, and it's one of these things where basically what he established was Captain America was Weapon 1, and then after Captain America was believed to have been dead, you had Weapons 2 through 10 of course being Weapon X, and then you had a few after Weapon X, of course, Deadpool, Phantom X, the Step for Cuckoos, different things like that. But the idea of Nuke was to kind of create a Captain America, but with a modified concept. But he was essentially bonded with cybernetic implants and then given these red, white, and blue pills. And the different pills would have different effects. They would amp him up, or they would keep him neutral, or they would bring him down. But the idea is that Frank Simpson's kind of a guy who came out of the war and then just never left the war. And so whenever you see him going on his rampages, he'll talk about oh, they got our boys, and different things like that, and sort of losing his mind. But with all these different versions here, what they're doing is as soon as Captain America shows up, where you would think they would side with Captain America because of the fact that it's Captain America, they remember him as Captain America from Secret Empire. And so the result is that where he is back to being a normal good guy, where the actual Captain America returned, Frank Simpson, all these guys turn their guns on him and go to attack him. And the reason why is because seeing him as basically, kind of the Hydra Cap, is they in turn basically say you sold our boys out, you sold our guys out. When you took power, when you basically killed the President of the United States, all these different things, you sold our guys out. And so many of our soldiers were killed because of you. And it's kind of a crazy scenario here because these guys are dealt with pretty fast. Between Captain America, Bucky Barnes, Sharon Carter, things are wrapped up pretty quickly. But then you have the introduction of Thunderbolt Ross. And Ross basically comes in and tells Sharon Carter, look, you don't really work for S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore, or at least Sharon Carter says she doesn't work for S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore. His idea is, but you'll always be Agent 13. I have a mission for you. You need to come with me. We're basically going to investigate the source of all these different nukes or whatever. Captain America, you can't come along. And under normal circumstances, Captain America would be there. But it's one of the big ramifications of things that came out of Secret Empire, America does not trust Captain America. And it's a really cool concept. There's still fallout from Secret Empire. That Captain America is not viewed the same way that he used to be, that things have changed forever because of the events of Secret Empire. And so it's kind of a cool scenario here because again, things sort of turn on their head. What you end up having going on here is like Selene and her guys basically, kind of marshaling forces, or at the very least showing some representation in Russia. You have Captain America who basically goes to Sharon Carter and is like, look, I essentially want you to keep tabs and like let me know what's going on in terms of the information you get. And she of course says, that's not something that I can do. I can't just hand information over like that. Things aren't the way they used to be anymore, really kind of creating this bit of a rift of sorts. And it's one of the things that Ta-Nehisi Coates uses when he has Captain America kind of asking this question, does anybody trust me anymore? It's a cool thing. And so what Captain America's really kind of done here is kind of create his own end run Secret Avengers. And what I mean by that is during the events of Civil War, when you had like Iron Man's Avengers team, public Avengers team that was fighting on behalf of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the federal government and registration, you had Captain America Underground with his Secret Avengers. Is really kind of where that name came from. The difference here is that they're not going to have a huge role in what Captain America is doing, but it's basically kind of Ta-Nehisi Coates putting the offerings on the table and saying somewhere along the line, this will essentially be a position that's out there, something that can be used. Now, this is one of the really cool things that comes out of this, is Captain America working alongside his sort of Secret Avengers begins to go on the same mission that Sharon Carter is, but by a different means. He's investigating using the only information that he gets, and he ends up in this small town and he ends up talking to this guy named Joe. And one of the things Joe basically says is the country's not really better off after Secret Empire than it was during Secret Empire. Under the rule of Hydra, as cruel as it was and as crappy as it was for a lot of people, that Hydra fixed the school systems, that Hydra got rid of drugs, that everybody had health care, the unemployment rate was astronomically low. The country was actually better because of Hydra. And what basically ended up happening is it was like the superhero community that, essentially sat down and said, yes, we know things are better under Hydra, but like they're bad guys though. So like we're gonna topple them and then we're gonna send you right back to the cesspool you were in before. And then like we can try to make it better, which didn't happen. That was one of the great things about Secret Empire, is it was really kind of Hydra Cat coming along and basically saying, hey, look, America, you had your chance. I'll do it by force. And like he did, and it worked. It's kind of interesting here because when Captain America sort of goes on this discussion and he sort of has this kind of like inner monologue with himself, it's really kind of a question of like, is the country actually better off? And it's one of those things because what it does is it throws Captain America's entire existence into question. If nobody trusts Captain America, if Captain America is essentially returning to a country that's as bad as it ever was, and then on some level has to acknowledge that there were at least some things that Hydra did right, then like, of what use is Captain America? What purpose does he serve? The value of Captain America is essentially gone now. And it's one of these things where if the value of Captain America as a symbol of American freedom is gone, people don't trust him. Do people even trust their own country? Do they even trust themselves? These are a lot of the introspective questions that Captain America is asking. And so of course they end up locating this factory and basically, finding out that Ezekiel Stane, the son of Obadiah Stane, is the one that's like mass producing all these versions of Nuke, but we don't really know what the end goal is here. It's just, this is one part of a much larger group that's essentially going through like all these crazy schemes and all these crazy goals. But it's one of the cool things because we'll actually find out how America is perceived in relation to like this organization as a whole. But as we kind of go through this, it's sort of a cool scenario because when they go through and they basically, defeat all these different guys, and take all these different people out and so on and so forth, we end up having Sharon Carter met directly with the arrival of Selene herself. And that's kind of a dangerous thing because remember, Sharon Carter doesn't really have any powers to speak of. She's a normal person. And so where she's essentially taken by Selene and then brought to Alexa, but literally Alexa starts taunting Sharon Carter and says, you don't know who I am. I don't know how you don't know who I am, or I guess there's no reason for you to. Let me tell you exactly who I am. What she says here is, my name is Alexa Lukin. Now this is a very, very big deal. This harkens all the way back to Ed Brubaker's run, which I would consider to be like the second best Captain America story ever. And what ended up happening here is there was a guy named Alexander Lukin. And Alexander Lukin was actually a guy who ended up having his body shared with the Red Skull after everything went south with Red Skull's cosmic cube. So essentially like Red Skull was walking around in the body of Alexander Lukin for quite some time. But Alexander Lukin, Red Skull, Dr. Faustus, they're the ones who engineered the original assassination of Captain America after the events of Civil War. And so with that happening, like Sharon Carter begins to realize what's going on, that this is a woman who is somehow in relation to Alexander Lukin being the person that was one of the members who basically got Sharon to kill Captain America. That's one of the things to remember, is that during the assassination of Captain America, that Sharon Carter was basically brainwashed by Dr. Faustus. And so when Captain America was being transported to the courthouse, that during the process, he was shot in the shoulder by crossbones, that while everybody was running and screaming and everybody was panicking, Sharon Carter ran up on him and shot him in the stomach. And that's basically what killed Captain America. And so when she ended up realizing what was done, then suddenly it was, oh my God, I killed Captain America, once the brainwashing wore off. There's a couple other really cool points that sort of come out of this, is that when Alexa's talking to Sharon, what she basically says is like, America's ripe for the picking. It's politically divided in every conceivable way. And she says, the allies that we needed to achieve our goal, they're everywhere. Like, they're all over the place. There were soldiers who fought against Hydra, they come back, and now they're considered outcasts. Now the country's broken and shattered, and it's so easy to control a government like that. Now, of course, this also basically results in Captain America running into Taskmaster, and it's kind of worth mentioning here. It's kind of a cool little discussion, a cool little fight that goes on here. Granted, you know, Captain America fighting against Taskmaster is no simple thing. Captain America doesn't just walk all over Taskmaster, and the reason why is because, remember, Taskmaster mimics. Basically, he's able to like adapt his fighting style to the person that he's fighting. Not only that, once he memorizes a fighting style, he never loses it. And it's one of the things that Captain America basically hits on here, that while he's fighting Taskmaster, he's fighting like the fighting styles of Iron Fist and the fighting styles of like Luke Cage, the style of anybody who's ever faced off against him, including Captain America himself. And so it's like fighting an army of people all at the same time. And Taskmaster actually gets the upper hand on Cap because of the fact that Taskmaster fights based on the style that he's experienced before. His limitation is that he doesn't really know how to adapt to a style that he hasn't faced before. At least he can, but it takes some time. And so because of that, Captain America's stance is be fast, be swift, and use a style that Taskmaster's not familiar with. And that's exactly what he does. The two of them basically face off, and Captain America starts using like street fighting tactics. And when he does, like, he's able to eventually overcome Taskmaster and basically win. But the caveat to this is that if they fight again, Taskmaster will be used to the way that Captain America fights, or at least his version of him. And so it's a cool little concept, a cool way to sort of overcome and a way to basically win. But of course, when Captain America shows up and starts facing off against like Selene, or at least intends to face off against Selene and Alexa, it's kind of a cool little moment when Captain America like recognizes who Selene is and basically says like, there's like two things I can do here. The first thing is to get, you know, Sharon Carter out of harm's way, and the second thing is to pray, because Selene, having been around for 10,000 years, is a prodigious fighter. And if she faces off against Captain America, all she has to do is get her hands on him. And as soon as that happens, Captain America's done for. But of course, once all this happens, the portal opens and Selene and Alexa basically leave because the mission's been accomplished. The whole basis behind them taking Sharon Carter has been accomplished. And the reason why is because all they needed was a sample in order to basically travel to this rejuvenation pod and to bring back Alexander Lukin. But that's one of the funny things, is for the most part, Alexa's not fully aware of what's going on here. For her, it's Alexander Lukin. For Alexander Lukin, it's the Red Skull. And that's basically what's happened here, is the Red Skull's been resurrected. And so it's kind of a cool little moment. Again, it's pretty awesome to kind of see this unfold. But when the two of them kind of start going back and forth, and they sort of start having this discussion and talking about things, one of the things Alexa does when she talks about Alexander, like, here's all the things that you've missed, here's what's going on. She talks about Secret Empire, all that kind of stuff, but she says, like, our ability to basically implement control of the government, to like take over everything, it's in motion. Like, we can pull this off because America's screwed up and America's fractured. That there's one section of America that wants to go back to the way things were under Hydra because it was easier, because the country was in a lot of ways better off, but freedom was essentially restricted to an almost non-existent state. Then there are others who basically say, yes, the country sucks now, but at least we have freedom. Hooray for that. Hopefully you can pay the bills. And so it's one of these cool little things, because she's just kind of like, we have the chance to conquer everything. Like, we literally have the chance to make our move. And it's one of the big questions that's kind of asked here is, what do we do about Captain America? And that's when she basically makes the case and she says, look, you don't have to kill Captain America because nobody believes in him anymore. Nobody cares about him anymore. He's a guy who's reminiscent of an age in the United States when Hydra conquered the country, and people just want to kind of put their head in the sand and pretend like that never happened. And by doing that, basically turn their back on Captain America. No one trusts him anymore, because when they look at him, they see Hydra Cap. And so because of that, like, you can kill Steve Rogers if you want to, but like, Captain America is basically dead. There is no more Captain America. Now, of course, we also end up finding out that Thunderbolt Ross has essentially been assassinated, and it's kind of a cool little thing, because when that happens, you have Nick Fury, who basically returns, who's kind of brought out ever since S.H.I.E.L.D. went belly up. And the whole point of Nick Fury being here is to ask the question, who was it that killed Thunderbolt Ross, and then interrogate Captain America to see if it was him. Really kind of hitting home with the idea that, like, nobody trusts Captain America anymore because of the aftermath of Secret Empire. It's awesome. I absolutely love it. Like, I feel like this is like one of the best stories that nobody's reading. I love this idea. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.